Be warned, this video will contain spoilers. Reacher Season 3, Episode 6 ramps up the tension and action in ways that fans absolutely love, proving once again why this show excels at delivering brutal, no-nonsense storytelling. Xavier Quinn isn't playing around anymore. He sends his men to investigate, and unfortunately for Reacher, it puts his old 110th unit in danger. The elder Beck sells them out, but Reacher, being 10 steps ahead as usual, makes sure he's the one in control. Blowing out tires, stealing a snowplow, and making a run for it, it's classic Reacher. But the real fun begins when he gets cornered and has to go full-on guerrilla mode in the woods. The scene of Reacher covering himself in mud to blend into the forest is straight out of an 80s action movie, and it works so well. He takes down his pursuers with almost terrifying efficiency. He's done hiding, done keeping a low profile. Now, it's about going straight through Quinn's men. Watching him systematically eliminate them, one by one, is incredibly satisfying. And while his fight against Pauli is looming, there's no doubt Reacher will figure out a way to take the guy down. This episode makes one thing clear. Reacher isn't just a soldier, he's a force of nature when he's set loose. The mission on Harley's boat? It's the kind of action sequence that fans crave. There's nothing more rewarding than watching Reacher dismantle an operation with precision, and Harley getting what he deserves just makes it that much better. But surprisingly, the real standout moment of the episode isn't even a fight, it's the laundromat scene. Watching Alan Ritchson seamlessly switch between intimidating and non-threatening while communicating with an elderly couple who don't even speak his language? It's proof that Reacher's not just about brute strength. He's got a depth that a lot of action heroes lack, and Ritchson absolutely nails it. But it's not just Reacher's relationships with strangers that stand out. His dynamic with Richard Beck is getting more complicated. Richard realizes that the kidnapping at the beginning of the season was a setup, and while the show tries to build tension about whether he'll turn on Reacher, it's clear that's not going to happen. In fact, what's really happening is Zachary Beck seeing just how much his son trusts Reacher, more than he ever trusted his own father. The jealousy is palpable, and it comes to a breaking point when Quinn forces Richard into a twisted game of Russian roulette. It's a mirror of the test Zachary put Reacher through in the premiere, but this time, Richard doesn't break. Instead, he turns the gun on Quinn. It's a bold move that proves just how much Reacher has influenced him, and it's one of the most intense moments of the season so far. And then there's Frances Neagley, finally back in action. After a brief appearance earlier in the season, she returns with full force, dishing out her own brand of justice after Quinn's goons come after her. While Powell doesn't make it, he refuses to break under pressure, reinforcing that the people in Reacher's orbit share his resilience. Neagle's revenge on Quinn's men is brutal, effective, and exactly the kind of scene that reminds us why she deserves more screen time. Reacher's next stop? Los Angeles. But don't mistake this for a leisurely trip. He and Susan Duffy might share a brief moment of connection, but there's no time for romance when the mission is still in motion. Still, their chemistry is undeniable, and even though Reacher isn't one for long-term relationships, the show always finds a way to give him meaningful connections. The biggest concern at this point is whether the fast pace of the show will allow these relationships to fully develop before the season ends. With just 2 episodes left, the stakes have never been higher. The fight in the forest was just a warm-up. Whatever's coming in episodes 7 and 8 will push Reacher to his limits. This season has shown a more strategic, almost calculated side of him, but the time for planning is over. The final battle is going to be a brutal showdown, and if there's one thing we know about Reacher, it's that he's at his best when things get ugly. What do you think? Will Reacher's influence change Richard and Zachary's relationship for good? Can Duffy and Reacher's dynamic survive the chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments.